So now he has given such a build up, like in English and in Indian English we call this a build up. Like he kind of gives such a grand introduction, and then sometimes the teaser of the movie is amazing, and then you're like kind of thinking that this movie is going to be great, and then you watch the movie, like the teaser was much better than the movie. The movie is like kind of crap. Like, but here in this case, you see, Krishna has given such an introduction. Oh, this is the best of the knowledge, this is the secret of the secrets, and this is the perfection of religion. And then he starts with such technical knowledge, and he just opens up. Then you feel like, wow, this is not, I'm not even able to get it. Like, it's so inconceivable. The knowledge itself is so bewildering, and it matches the kind of teaser that he gave. So it is really sounds very secret, like it just kind of sounds very complicated, but believe me, we'll try to understand. And it's very funny, the kind of examples that Krishna gives and the Acharya's commentary. So it's going to be technical. I'm prepping you for that. I'm explaining all this, that it's not going to be easy. These next 5-6 verses are going to be very technical, and I don't have any ability to make it like kind of super simplified than what it is. So it's a complicated knowledge. So let's acknowledge that and keep with me, and then open the book, look at the verses, and then ask questions, and try to enter into the verses and be more attentive, because these are technical. So would anyone like to read the verse 9.4 on the screen?
I can read it.
Yes.
By me, in manifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them.
So Krishna is saying, in his unmanifested form, that means Brahman, in his energy form, he is pervading the whole universe. Literally, the universe is inside out, is all his energy. So in that sense, it's him. His energy is pervading. So everybody is existing in him or sustained by his energy. But again, he says, but I am not in them. So what does that mean? Like, if all beings are in me, but I'm not in them, so what is the understanding? We will see more. Chakresh? Chakresh? Yeah.
Prabhuji, so I had a question on this. So if Krishna's Paramatma, isn't he in like every single being?
Easy in every single?
Isn't Krishna in every single being because he's
Being.
Paramatma?
Yes. So so you're questioning, how is he saying he is not in them? That's the question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what Krishna is saying. So in his Paramatma form, he is there. In his Brahman form, he is not. He is there. But when he says, "I am not in them," he is referring to his very own personal form as Bhagavan. Does that make sense? Because he has a separate existence. Say, for example, I take this piece of paper and then I shred it into 100 pieces. Where is the original piece that we saw? Is not there. So Krishna is not like that, that he has become Paramatma and everyone's expanded into everyone's heart. That does not mean he has his own, he does not see, he has ceased to exist. He still retains his personal existence. He still is existing separately as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu in the Vaikuntha, and as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Mahavishnu, and so many other incarnations, and as the supreme personality of Godhead Krishna. He lives, he is residing in the Goloka. So all of them are there, though he is again are he's expanding as Brahman and Paramatma. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, I hope you are satisfied. Okay. And everything that is created does not rest in me. He just said everything rests in him in the verse 4. And in verse 5, he begins exactly with the contradiction. Whatever he said in the previous verse, he is contradicting himself. Just now he said all beings are in me. Now he says that everything that is created does not rest in me. This in me is the personal me, that the Bhagavan aspect. He is still separate from all of these things. So he has created the material nature, and the material nature is operating, and he has his expansions maintaining that material nature, but he has his personal existence separate. And he says, behold my mystic opulence. So we will explain what is that mystic opulence in the next verse. And he says, although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. So Krishna, from him comes the material nature. So he is outside the material nature. However, he chooses to actually come into the material nature in the form of Paramatma or Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Mahavishnu, Shirodakshay Vishnu, and all of these personalities. But still, he is outside all of that. He is transcendental to it, and he is also physically also he is out of it in a particular sense. So that is why he's saying, I maintain everything, and I'm everywhere in the form of Brahman, and I maintain as Paramatma all the living entities, but still I'm not part of this cosmic manifestation. Imagine like what kind of a personality is so inconceivable that everything is him, but he is separate from everything. So I don't know if it's kind of titillating your intelligence, but it's like fascinating to know that Krishna is inconceivable. He is beyond our understanding. The moment you understand, you say, yeah, I understand that Krishna is who Krishna is. That's not right. Like we cannot understand Krishna fully. What we can understand is that we cannot understand Krishna fully. That is how we can understand Krishna rightly. Otherwise, this relationship with the material world and with the living entities are very inconceivable. We can never fully understand him. We can have some understanding of Krishna, which is necessary to know him to some extent, to love him and to practice devotional service. Who has raised the hand?
I had raised it, but you answered my question without
Okay,
asking.
okay. That's great. Ishwari?
Yeah, could it be considered, to explain it maybe a little bit better? I'm not sure. I might just be throwing myself under the bus here, but would it be like like a mother while she's carrying the womb, while she's carrying a child within her body, she's in control of its creation, of its existence, its nurturing. But once the child is born, although he is part of the mother and was one with the mother, now is independent of the mother. Even though we take care of them, they're still independent. They will have their own will, they'll do their own things. And we're when we're part of it, but also the child now is independent, is dependent, but also independent of the mother.
Thank you very much for bringing out this point. So that's what we are going to see in the next verse. So what, like when Krishna says like, I'm not in them, but they are in me. So what is that relationship that he has with the living entities specifically? Especially you beautifully brought up this point that the mother is no more in control of the child, in the sense the child is an individual who takes his or her own decisions and makes his or her own choices. It's very difficult to control, or literally you hardly have any control. So what kind of relationship does Krishna have with the living entities? So that's what he is going to come to the next, and that is where his mystic opulence is lying. So Krishna said, oh, it's very inconceivable. And my next slide was asking whatever you said, Ishwari. So can you think of an analogy to understand how something can pervade everything but still remain distinct from it? So you did give one example, like the mother takes care of the child. Still, when the child comes out, and still the mother and the child are two different individuals, even when they're in the womb, when the child is still in the womb. So any other example where you could understand from our daily life that what Krishna is saying, that he is pervading something at the still, like something is actually pervades everything and still remains distinct from it? Any guess? It's one of the natural elements.
Lotus flowers always in the water, but it never gets wet.
Water never gets wet. Okay, that's interesting. Is there any other element that usually pervades everything but still remains distinct?
Air.
Olga?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, someone did say air, and I was thinking that as well, but now I'm thinking an even better idea would be ether.
Yes, space and wind or air both kind of work, but the better is ether actually. So it usually pervades everything but still remains distinct from it. So that is exactly what Krishna uses to explain in this particular verse. He says, understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. So the whole idea of this analogy is to show that how all living beings rest in Krishna and still how he is independent of them. So that's what this analogy is supposed to explain. An apparently inconceivable concept through an example. So the moment you give an example, it becomes conceivable, right? When you say the concept is so inconceivable and I'm giving you an example, that means what? It is conceivable. Otherwise, what is the point of giving the example? So what that is where Krishna's mystic opulence will lie. So we will explain more. So I know it's technical, sorry, but Krishna is inconceivable, still he is giving an example. So that wind and sky analogy. So what is this analogy is, say for example, you take a ball and turn it like kind of upside down on your kitchen counter. So what happens is now inside the ball there is air, there is wind, and this particular ball is now acting as that sky, which is like kind of like we in this particular cosmos, in this particular universe. Yes, there is wind which can freely move in any direction, but it cannot get out of the space. Within that space, like within that ball, the wind can go in any direction. However, it cannot go beyond that particular ball. Sometimes we have dogs, we chain the dogs, or we tie the cows or the horses. They can actually free roam around, because to the extent you give the rope, to that extent they can freely move around, like back forth, what they can do, whatever, but they cannot go beyond that. So we do have some independence, so that like the mighty wind, it can blow within any direction within the sky, but it is limited within the sky. Similarly, the living entities do have free will. They can move about like the wind. They can choose, they make their own choices. So they have unlimited freedom within a limited framework. Like now you can sit in this class, you can be attentive, you can be distracted, you could be sleeping, you could be taking notes, you could be playing a game on the side, you could be watching something else on the side, you could be doing all of those things, but you cannot fly. So you have freedom, but within a limited framework. Within that physical laws, whatever is possible, you do have that freedom. So similarly, here Krishna is saying, yes, the living entities are all resting in me. They have unlimited freedom, but within a particular framework. And he's managing all of these things. Like the sky and the wind, they are like inanimate objects. So there is no attachment which is created. But Krishna, he is maintaining everything, but it is not attached to it. That is his mystic opulence. Usually, as the example that Ishwari gave, when a mother maintains the child, so there is naturally affection and attachment. So we have expectations. It's very natural. It is impossible for a conscious living entity to maintain something and to not have attachment. It is very difficult. That's why Krishna is, he's just not maintaining one or two people. Everything comes from him, and he is maintaining everything on a higher sense. Still, he's detached from it. So that is his mystic opulence. Because to be conscious, to be really loving and caring, but not attached, and giving that freedom. And still the living entities, they have unlimited freedom within a limited framework, like the wind and the sky. So all these things are on a certain level inconceivable, but what we are here to understand is that Krishna is the maintainer of all living entities. He pervades everything, he maintains everything, but still he is separate from everything. Purva?
Prabhuji, isn't this also what we are trying to learn? That we live in this world, we have so many relations to maintain, but yet we are trying to, well, maintain those relations, but yet detach ourselves from them.
Yes, it is not very easy. Only when our focus is on kept on a higher supreme reality, then we get that ability to be detached from immediate reality. On our own, it's very difficult. We need something higher to repose that attachment. So we are never detached. We are attached to another reality. Hope it makes sense. So this is verse 6. What is the time? Can someone help me know the time?
15
It's
minutes
9:46.
more.
46. Oh, I'm sorry. These verses are running on there. Okay, I'm sorry. My system has gone very slow, so it's responding late. So now that we have seen that Krishna is the maintainer of everything, so in verses 7 and 8, Krishna is going to explain that how he is not just the maintainer, but he is also the creator, and he is also the cause of the destruction of all these things. So he is Janma Adi Astyataha, Janma Adi, creation, maintenance, destruction, everything is coming from him. So that's what he is explaining in these next two verses. So he says at the end of the millennium, all these material manifestations, they all enter into his nature. And in the beginning of another millennium, he creates them again. So this is referring to his creation. And then he says, under his will, they are automatically manifested and also they are annihilated at the end. So he is the cause of creation and he is the cause of destruction. So why do you think it's important to understand that material creation is not random but orchestrated by divine will?
So that we understand why certain things are happening with us or what is our purpose.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Anybody else? It helps us understand our own purpose. Anything else? Why is it important to understand that the world is created, maintained, and annihilated by the supreme will and it's not random? Yes, Olga?
Maybe so that we can see Krishna and everything around us.
Okay. It helps us to see Krishna and everything around us. Thank you. Ishwari?
To understand that we're not the controller.
Yeah, that is very apparent, right? Yeah, we are not the controllers because we don't make the schedule. Okay, let there be creation, let there be destruction. That's good. Yes, we are not in control. It's very easy to understand that we are not in control. However, okay, I'm not in control, but these things are random. So why is it important that it's happening because of Krishna's will and it's not random? I'm just trying to pick your brains. Anybody else? Prabhupada always mentions this, always emphasizes this point. Why do you think it's very important to understand that the world is not just a result of a random explosion or a chance or anything? Yes, Chakrash?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Wait, why is it important to know that everything is like being caused by Krishna and not like random events?
That's my question.
So that if we realize that he is our creator, then we will take interest in him and go back to Godhead.
Okay, that's
Maybe.
good. That's good. I'm asking more like Chakrash, do you have an answer? You repeated my own question. That's cheating. The question is already on the slide. You're asking me again the same thing. You're supposed to answer.
So that you know he's the supreme personality of Godhead.
Okay, that's the Ramban. It's the common answer for every question. Thank you, Chakrash. Parnika?
So Krishna says to be truly situated in knowledge of me, it will bring
Mm.
you closer to devotional service and hence bring you back to Him. So, if you don't understand that the complete creation is under Krishna, there is no chance in you being complete knowledge of Him or even beginning to understand Him. You need to
Mhm.
accept Him as the supreme to even begin understanding the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita and then the three most confidential understandings of the Gita. So without this is just the starting step to even learning about Krishna. And without learning about him, how can you get closer to him in devotional service? And without that, how can you think of him all the time? And without that, how can you go back to him? It is
Thank you. So it is all like
yeah.
connected, like how you're saying. It is all very connected. It is very necessary and pertinent to know. So continue to meditate on this. That how do you approach the world? How do you look at the world? So do you think that it is created by Krishna and it has a scheduled by Krishna? It is maintained by Krishna and it is annihilated by Krishna. So all of you shared. It's all pertinent. I am adding on top of it, like. One of the other reasons also is like, it's not that any of you did not mention this, I'm just I'm just kind of reflecting all of you, that the reason that we need to understand that the material creation is not random is, if we think it is random, of course we don't think like that, but we sometimes act like that. We don't think like that, but we act like that. So the problem with that is, like, then we actually lack a faith that there is a purpose for this whole thing. So the world is created for the purpose of reformation of the souls. So the world is actually created, maintained, and annihilated by Krishna. The whole facility is provided so that I can transform my consciousness, so that we all can transform our consciousness. So it's very important for general people to, that's why Prabhupada hammered this point, that no, it's not random. Because when something is random, it does not have any purpose. But here Krishna has created for a particular purpose. He comes again and then he sends his representatives like Prabhupada. So that is why he always made sure that this point got across very clearly, that material creation is not random. It is, though like it has a cycle, though we may not be able to understand how things are working, that Prabhupada nailed this point again and again, that material creation is not random. Sometimes, though we believe that it is created by Krishna, we act in ways, we neglect the purpose of that, and we act in other ways which keeps us away from spiritually transforming. So that is why again it is important to meditate that the material creation is not random. Krishna is doing all this hard work. It's not hard work for him. Still, he is doing all of these enormous work of creating, maintaining, and annihilating all these inconceivable things. He is doing for you and me to transform our hearts. That's as simple as that. That is why he is taking the like efforts to explain this knowledge, to make us understand. Imagine the amount of endeavor, though it is very easy for Krishna, but just imagine the amount of endeavor that Krishna goes through to facilitate the conditioned soul's transformation and to actually evoke love in their hearts. He has to go through so much, and we also have to go through so much, unless and until we understand the purpose and see that this whole creation is here for a purpose. So, and then Krishna says, okay, all this work cannot bind me. Somebody may say, Krishna, how horrible it is. Does you with your will, you create, annihilate, and so many millions of living entities, millions and millions and millions of living entities will just like that be annihilated, and just like this created. So all for your whims. So somebody may think how horrible that is. So that's why he's saying, no, this work cannot bind me, because I am detached, and all these material activities I perform as though seated as neutral. So here this means that it's not that Krishna wants to create, maintain, and annihilate. Because the souls want that, he's giving the facility. It's not the government's mistake, or what do you call it cannot be blamed on the government that it has a prison, because there are people who have such tendencies that the prison is created to maintain the society. Yeah, the prison could be empty if nobody has that kind of a tendency, but we cannot fault the government for having prison. It is the problem of the criminals. So similarly, we cannot fault Krishna for creating, maintaining, destroying the material universes. It is to actually give a chance to the conditioned souls to reform. So we are the ones because of whom this world is being created, maintained, annihilated, not because Krishna wants to. So before I go on, Olga?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, you touched on this a little bit, but I wonder if you can clarify about 9.7. So let's say I understand that we as souls are here for the purpose of evolving, right? That would be our motivation. And Krishna's motivation for making in the material world would be to help us facilitate that process. But what is Krishna's motivation for destroying and then reinstituting the material world all over again? Because he could provide opportunity for development without going through that process. So what's his motivator there?
Thank you. As I was explaining, I hoped that somebody would ask this question because I didn't want to again pitch myself and explain myself. Thank you so much. It helps me to explain when the question actually is in the flow. It's very perfect. It's very thoughtful. I'm very happy that you're attentively listening to this. So the reason, imagine you just take one body and Brahma's lifetime is 100 years. And then just imagine we all have different kinds of desires. Just imagine being stuck in one kind of body for a very, very long time. So it's not very easy with all the experiences that we go through in different lives, in different forms. So we exhaust many of our desires because we have multiplicity of desires. So in this life, we have some desires. According to that, we have a certain body, and we have developed new desires in this life. We still have places to go, or like kind of dresses that we want to have, the kind of taste that we want to enjoy. We wish we were like that. We wish beautiful like this person, handsome like that guy, or rich like this person. We have developed so many desires in this life also. So for all those new desires, how will you experience if you don't get a newer iteration of bodies?
I think you
That's
would
the
die
point.
and then you would be reborn and then you would die and repeat.
Because like you have newer desires, but if you're stuck with one body, how are you going to experience those desires?
But you're not stuck with one body in the vast scope of the material world. As we look around, we can see that there is a good variety of living beings.
Yeah, that is. But if, say, for example, if there is no destruction in the sense of the iterations, so then I'm speaking about the destruction of the body. The iteration for our individual bodies, that destruction happens because we have more desires, and for us to have more varieties and then exhaust those desires. And when it comes to the material world itself, so different places have different flavors, different universes have different opportunities and things. So that is why there is a cycle there that Krishna is creating. Okay, you go on, experience, I'll give you a chance. If it does not, so then we will wind that up, we will start again. At least in this new iteration, I hope that you will develop some desire. So it's like basically he's just giving more opportunities. Otherwise, you're stuck in the same kind of a setup. So the idea is to give us more opportunities. That is why this destruction is also happening. Say, for example, you may say the prison system, why is it working in a certain way? Also, the government has the right to run the system in a certain way. A criminal has no right to ask, why is the system run like this? It should be like that. So it's also Krishna's will. So he has an idea for the design for this thing, and we cannot ask why there is destruction. You could be in a place where there is no destruction. So I'm trying to explain both logically, and I'm also going like kind of in a debating mode, saying like you don't even have the right to ask why there is destruction and why this kind of a system. It is Krishna's will. But the reasoning is to give us that kind of a break, because the soul experiences so much material tribulation. It actually needs a break. So then the annihilation gives the soul a break. It goes back to the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, rests actually, and then comes back in a newer iteration. So it starts back, because the soul is also continuously going through material experiences. It cannot actually handle it. So then the rest is given, and then the creation is again created. And also we need Brahma, so then he has a specific lifetime. So at the end of his lifetime, then everything needs to be wound up. So for all practical and spiritual reasons, and beyond our logic also. I know it's not fully satisfying even to me, but this is the best I know. Okay. So how, and coming back to this particular question, like when Krishna says he is neutral, so how do we understand this idea of Krishna being neutral, and yet he is directing everything? So have you experienced any role in this world that they are directing everything, but they are like detached from everything, neutral? Any professions, any personal experiences? Yes, Purva?
Wedding organizers, like they they plan the entire function, but they don't participate in the function.
Oh, if things don't go the way it planned, are they neutral? Are they in anxiety? Will they be blamed?
No, but well,
Yes, they'll
yes,
be blamed,
true.
right? Say, for example, you have a cake and the cake collapses before the wedding, before the couple cut it. Like the planner will be in soup. Like they'll be blamed for it, right? They cannot just remain neutral. I have done my work and I don't care how the wedding goes. No, you are responsible for the outcome, right? If something goes wrong, they'll be blamed for it.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. How about Swarit?
The way I understand it, I see Krishna being part of the creation of every being, but not being involved in their actions.
Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. That's what we are trying to explain. Like, do you have an example of a similar role in this world that they kind of direct everything, but they cannot be blamed for anything? They're just neutral.
The way I understand it, I'm gonna guess a court judge, because they're involved in like the judging the criminal and
Yes.
convicting him for the crime, but then they're like not even part of protecting the criminal. They're just neutral.
Or they cannot be blamed for the sentence that they are giving to the criminal.
Yeah.
But
Or they said
they can give a wrong sentence and the wrong person
we
can
are
be
assuming
jailed
a just judge and who's like who's acting
but
according
then
to law.
so
We are
then
not going
even the
into the
wedding
exception
plan
of the analogy, because analogy is to bring a point out. So if you go dig the analogy, then there is no end to it. So you and me will start discussing about both Indian and American politics of appointing judges. I
but
don't know.
so then the wedding planners can also be a good
Oh,
example, no?
okay, that's
Because
where you come from. So we accept your
I'm
analogy,
just
even if it is
saying.
wrong. The judge is like, he cannot be blamed for the sentence that he gives, because it's the mistake of the criminal, right? In that sense, the judge is a neutral party. He cannot be blamed for the good or the bad that either of the parties are doing. He's just like a neutral person, acting according to it and doing what should be done, and things happen because of his judgment, but he is a completely neutral party, at least ideally. That's the idea. Does that make sense? A wedding planner is not that kind of a neutral party. He's fully into the hands,
Okay.
like everything is on the ground. So the verdict comes from the judge, but is not caused by the judge. So in that sense, Krishna is disinterested but not uninterested. So what I mean by disinterested is this, I have taken from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. That's why it sounds so poetic, and I hope I remember what I read and I can repeat. So Krishna is like disinterested but not uninterested, means he is not going to involve, like how a judge is not going to involve in trying to save or free. He's just going to do whatever according to the karma the living entity has to experience, whatever is the desire and the repercussions. He is not going to involve himself into anything. Okay, let me specifically save this individual or leave this individual or punish this individual. He is not interested in those things. He's going to act like a judge, being neutral. At the same time, he is not uninterested, in the sense he is not just letting the living entity rot. He is coming as the Paramatma. He is speaking Bhagavad Gita, he's sending his devotees, he's making sure that knowledge is widely available as much as possible, and sitting in the heart of the soul as Paramatma and following everywhere. So he is never completely abandoned. He is interested, but he is wanting for the soul to turn, because in love there is no force. So he is waiting patiently. So there is no question of uninterest in Krishna's part, but he does not manipulate things unnecessarily. He let the soul actually choose to love and waits for it, and as a setup for it. So in that sense, he is waiting. And let's finish today, at least at the 10th verse. And this is the end of the section. So this material nature, which is one of Krishna's energies, is working under his direction. And Krishna is saying here that this particular creation of his is moving. All the moving and non-moving beings are all produced from him. And this material nature is actually manifested, created, and annihilated again and again under its rule. So we may say, okay, Krishna is creating and annihilating. Krishna is also saying, I'm not directly doing anything. I have pushed this button like a remote, and things are happening according to the material nature. So he has set up the system, and he does not have to meddle with it every now and then. The system is running on its own, so he cannot be blamed for some good or bad in this. We can, like, many times we blame God for the bad that is happening to us, but it's like there are three entities involved: the same judge and the criminal and the police. So the judge cannot be blamed for the sentence that they are giving, because the police is actually taking care of the criminal. And assuming that all these individuals like the police and the judge are all acting according to the rules, so then the police is the material nature, the jiva is the criminal, and Krishna is like the judge. He does not have anything to meddle with. The police will do his job, and when it comes to his own involvement, he just gives sanction. As a Paramatma, he is that judge. He just sanctions things. But the material nature takes care of the other things, choosing what kind of body you will get, what kind of conditionings karma will be set aside for you in this. That is all taken care of the material nature. So that is one discussion. The other discussion that this verse can warrant is that people, as we discussed in the beginning, faith in God requires believing illogical things. Some people who may not have faith in God may say this: hey, your God is lifting mountain. Who can believe those things? Like, how is it possible? Who in the right mind can believe that a small boy can lift a mountain? So that's why we reject this. We cannot have this blind faith. So how can we just overlook logic like this? How is this God doing all these illogical things? If this question is there, so Krishna is answering through this particular verse 9.10. He is saying the material nature is working under his direction. If he has created it, and by his will, if he can maintain it, by his will, if he can destroy it, and then is like Maya Adhyakshena Prakriti, if it is working under his direction, can he actually not manipulate, like, with his will and power, not lift the same mountain that he has created? Because faith requires not rejection of logic. But to say that logic is above God means you are making logic as God. But logic means it can be subordinated to a higher reality. Even in mundane science, in material science, certain things are out of logic, and we glorify it as the beauty of nature. You see, usually solid state has more density than the liquid state of a particular element. Usually solid state will sink in the liquid state. But if you see water, its solid state has lesser density and floats on water. Ice floats on water, though it is a solid state. It is supposed to have more density, but it has less density. And if that does not happen, if water did not have that property, the whole world will be extinct. No aquatics can actually live in winter season. If you see lakes, there is ice. You can have skating and everything. You can ice skate, you can have dancing, and all those things you can do on top of ice, because the ice is protecting the low aquatics inside from the external temperature. The water inside is going to be warm warm enough for the living entities to survive. And if it all becomes ice, then the living entities would freeze to death. So the formation of ice prevents the water below from becoming all frozen to completely. So if that property of water was not there, the whole material world will not exist. We will not have the world that how we are experiencing. And we will consider that as the nature of water. We are okay with that inconceivable nature. We will call it as wonder of nature. We will make discovery channels and documentation of these scientific facts, and we will glorify nature for that, and we will appreciate this exception, and we will say this is the beauty of nature. But when there is an exception from the side of God, that he just lifts a small mountain that he has created, he has created this whole creation, but if he just lifts a mountain, that exception we cannot agree, because that is going against our logic. But when water defies your logic, that is its beauty. So the scientists have faith in, see beauty in these exceptions in nature, and theists see beauty in the exceptions that Krishna shows by his glories, by his strength, by his omnipotence. When he lifts the mountain, then the theists, when the devotees are glorifying, hey Giridhari. So there are so many Giridhari, Gopal, and they are just glorifying Krishna with these names, that he has lifted this mountain, and they are making bhajans out of it, and they are singing and they are celebrating, and they are happy that their God is amazing, that he is lifting. So the scientists are looking at water and they are so amazed by the quality of water, and devotees are amazed by the qualities of Krishna. But someone who does not have faith, he thinks logic reigns more, but he is willing to let go of his logic in the face of the nature when it shows its inconceivable nature, like a water. But he is not willing to put that faith in the higher reality. So logic, faith is never rejection of logic. It is just always subordination to a higher reality. So people are okay to accept the inconceivable nature of a material element, water, but they are not willing to accept the inconceivable omnipotence of Krishna. So that is their problem, because their faith, their logic, they are not able to subordinate to a higher reality. I hope that makes sense. Any questions, Purva?
Prabhuji, I think it's more of a question of the senses, because the ice and water we can perceive with our senses, but someone lifting a mountain with the finger, we cannot perceive it with our senses. Neither do we have concrete proofs of its existence nor nothing. So it's one of the
Okay,
reasons
assume
why.
if that happened before your eyes, what would you say? Is your seeing is the only, will you just accept? Like if like Krishna lifts the mountain, like he showed universal form, still people did not accept. He transformed the Kubja, still the Kuvalayapid was killed before Kamsa's eyes. Chanur Mushtika was killed before his eyes. Still he thought he could kill Krishna. So
yes, no, but I'm saying, like, in today's world, we don't have the concrete proofs that these things happened in the past. Like, for example, the Harappa Mohenjo-daro civilization, we have some proofs, but this we have very little or no proofs, no tangible proofs. So this is one of the reasons why people reject him.
yeah, I understand if that is the only reason, but do they actually believe that God can lift? Okay, forget about Krishna lifting, they have not seen, but do they believe that God can lift a mountain?
But they don't
So
believe in God. So
do they have, so they don't believe. So it's not about directly seeing. They don't have belief in.
Yes, but they don't believe because they can't perceive him with their senses. That's the reason why they don't believe.
Okay, can they explain why water and why ice floats in water? They can explain, but can they explain why it is so? Why is it like that? That's how it is. That's how it is, right? When it comes to science, it's okay. You can accept the word saying, "Oh, that's how it is." But when it comes to God, like these things don't, like, it's just, again, that's why their own logic seems like more important, like cannot be subordinated to a higher reality. They don't understand there is a higher reality which works. So there is no complete answer for someone who is atheistic. If somebody is bent upon not accepting the proof of God's existence, nobody can actually convince them.
But they are also trying to prove scientifically whether God exists, whether the soul exists, and they're conducting experiments and all that. So
Okay, let them prove if their brain exists, like if their mind exists. They are not able to prove consciousness exists according
yes,
to science. So it is called as the hard problem of consciousness. And you and me are speaking and experiencing. The robots are not experiencing the color the way we are experiencing. But still, science cannot scientifically prove that consciousness exists. So that's why Prabhupada said in MIT, he said, where is the department of science which says the difference between the dead body and the living body? So science has a lot more to explain. So we cannot just, I'm not saying I'm not against science, but I'm saying if anybody feels anything which is not proven by science does not exist, then their own consciousness does not exist, because science hasn't proved it yet.
yes.
Okay, it's a very tense note that we are ending. So let's continue the chapter in the coming week. That this is from verses 11. We will continue. Hope today was a beneficial session, and I tried my best to explain these 10 verses, which I feel this section was little intense. So I tried to make it as much as possible interactive and explain it with whatever understanding I have. So see you next week, and thank you very much for taking your time this morning and joining us. So Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Tagore Premanand. Hare Krishna. Haribol, thank you everyone. See you soon.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, sorry, thank you for joining.
Thank
Hare Krishna
you.
Purva, Olga, Mother
Hare
Yogeshwari.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank
Krishna
you.
Chinmay. Thank you for staying. Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna.
Shreyas, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji for
Haribol,
Purva
Mother
Mata ji,
Yogeshwari. Hare Krishna. Chakresh Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
for Purva Mata ji, I have something to say. Oh, she left.
Purva had
Yeah.
something to say. Oh, she just left the call. Sorry.
She has a like.
Yeah.
So this is I think this is the beauty of. So this in Taittiriya Upanishad, it is Prabhupada used to quote
Okay.
this.